Good evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Friday, y'all, and welcome to your second episode of Just Talking with your host. I am Michelle Love, and I am happy to see y'all. I'm trying to get my camera game straight here, y'all, so just bear with me. Bear with me. I see my baby. Hey, Paris. So I'm glad that I hope that everybody had a good day. I'm here, y'all. It's Friday. I know for some of y'all it's your holy day, so happy holy day. I don't know if I'm going to get it right with this camera. Okay. We just going to do the best we can with what we got. All right, y'all. So tonight's topic was identifying your trauma, right? Because we're here to talk about trauma and healing. And with that being said, I had that particular topic in mind, and we will actually touch on that. But I wanted to touch on something else really quickly because this week I got a lot of phone calls and just news about people who were either passed away, they're in the process of passing away, um, they are sick and dealing with some things, trying to get over it. And I just want us all to be mindful, y'all, to be grateful, thankful that we're here. I want to remind us to love on our loved ones while we're here. Let's not continue to take for granted that we're going to be here tomorrow, because that may not always be the case. And I want to encourage you guys that one of the things that I hope to get out of this and coming to you guys before you guys is that I hope that we heal some trauma, some generational trauma that for some of us, our families, it's been passed down from one generation to another. Some of us have things that abuse wise, domestic violence, sexual abuse, all these different things, drug use, that have been in our family for decades, for years. And I think that one of the ways that we honor our loved ones as they leave us is that we do the best we can to heal ourselves and to heal others around us and share ourselves with each other so that we can heal from those things generationally. Before I started doing this, I had some anxiety about whether or not I wanted to do it, because a lot of times when we're talking about our trauma, there are other people in our families that we may still be in communication with, whether we have forgiven them or not, that it might rub them some kind of way for you to be sharing that on a public platform. That being said, prior to several weeks before I had my first live, my great aunt. So whenever you guys hear me say mom, I'm always going to be talking about my great aunt, because again, my story is that the source of my trauma is that my mother was murdered when I was a child. But when you hear me say my mom, I'm always talking about my great aunt. That's who raised me. It's the only mother that I know. And I remember having anxiety. Do I want to get on here and do I want to publicly talk about the things that have caused me trauma? Because a lot of the stories that you might hear me tell will paint her in that particular moment as a monster, right? But I also think that because I've gone through the process and I've done some healing, I also have the ability to give you a different perspective of her. I have a way of giving you a different view, whereas when I was still hurting and unhealed, I may have only given you a monster. I may have only given you somebody that hurt people. But she was deeper than that, and there were many layers to her. But that being said, I think that several weeks before I went live for the first time, I was just really meditating and praying on, do I really want to do this? Because I don't want for family members who might tune in to be upset with me. That being said, in my prayers, much like when God answers us, it was placed in my spirit by her that she gave me permission to come before you guys, to be so vulnerable, to be so transparent. She gave me permission to do that because it's a generational curse that we're breaking, because in our family, we've had many, many tragedies, many of the same type of tragedies. And she really gave me her permission to just be released, to be free in the things that I say. And especially because I am coming from a healed place, because I want you to understand that when we're still hurting and we're still unhealed, a lot of times the only goal that we have is to hurt the next person. Sometimes we do it even without intent. So it's really important that, you work through the process so that you can sometimes give more than just the ugly part of the picture, right? Because I've suffered a lot of trauma in my life, but I've also had really great experiences. There's also things that my mother gave me that were really positive, and they make me a part of who I am today in a very beautiful way. So, that's a part of the reason why we're going to go through the healing process as well. So I kind of just wanted to put that out there, that you guys just love your people while they're here. Say what needs to be said. Sometimes we have to relinquish the spirit of wanting to win or wanting to be right. Sometimes we just have to not even concern ourselves with that. We do have the right to have boundaries. We do have the right to ensure that people are going to treat us accordingly. But also just understand that you can offer forgiveness and peace without actually having to interact with a person on a daily, regular basis. So that being said, I just wanted it to be apparent, because I do have family that will be on here. I have some on here now, and I love y'all. And at some point, you guys might see some of them, because there are specific topics that, just as you guys are listening right now, I want you to be aware that I'll be pulling on you for. Keisha Hines, I love you. And Sonia Jones. Thank you, Mama Sonia. But we got to love people while they're here. And sometimes we have to figure out how not to be petty. But my great aunt really released me to talk about the things I'm talking about, because there are certain things that, they've plagued my family generationally. They happened to my grandmother. They happened to my mother. They happened to me. My trauma spilled over onto my children. And I think that one of the other things that is very important is that, be accountable even to your children. Like, listen, some of the stuff that we were experiencing, it did cause them a little bit of trauma. Now, we all know that sometimes our kids can be dramatic as well. There might be things that their choices that they're making in their own life, and they want to have somebody to blame. But I also think that we do need to be accountable for the trauma that we bring to their lives. And that's why it's important for us to get that healing. And again, I want to remind you guys that I'm not an expert at anything. I'm just sharing my personal healing journey with you, because no one thing works for everybody. But I think it's so tragic that at times healing seems like it has to cost so much. There's no particular way to do it. And it's interesting because after the episode last week, I had a lot of different people reach out to me that they wanted to read my tarot. They wanted to sell me waist beads and all these different things. I don't knock what anybody does. And I can't say that there's any right or wrong way for you to process your healing. But what I do want you to know, waist beads are not going to bring you healing. Crystals are not going to bring you healing. Praying to the east is not going to bring you healing. At the end of the day, what's going to bring you healing is that you do have to be willing and open to your connection with God. You've got to let him speak to you, because there's going to be a lot of different ways that he might bring that to you. And there's no really right or wrong way for you to connect with God, because he's different in all of our lives. But we do know that we need him. I can tell you that you won't be able to get to the level of elevation with regard to peace without him. Okay, so that's me winging it for a moment, y'all. But now we're going to talk about identifying your trauma, right? Because you can't actually fix what's wrong with you if you don't know what's wrong with you. You can't address the issues that you have if you can't identify the situation in which caused them. And there are reasons sometimes that people are the way that they are. There are reasons why they interact with people the way that they do. There are certain things that are triggering to other people or even yourself because of certain things that you've experienced. So I will just start with, how do you identify your trauma? One of the things that throughout the process of my own healing that I had to learn is that you've got to be very willing and open to evaluate yourself, right? And don't change the narrative when the self evaluation becomes uncomfortable. Because there are times where you might actually be evaluating yourself, your relationship with other people, how you deal with certain things. And it may get uncomfortable because you might learn that you're the toxic person. You might learn that you're the bad energy. And you have to identify the reasons why you are the way that you are, or that you respond to certain situations in the way that you do. And I guess I'll give you an example. And I will say that I try to pray, I meditate regularly, but just as an example, when I talk about identifying your trauma. Hey, Auntie Helene, thank you for coming on. Okay, so I always used to date a certain type of man. Every man that I dated when I was in my younger years, he was either a gangbanger, a drug dealer, some sort of street person, thug, etc., etc., etc. And there may be men that I have dated in my past that are watching this broadcast. I love y'all, but we also know at the time what you were and under what circumstances we connected. And most of them are definitely different people. They've elevated to a new level themselves. I'm happy to say that. But anyway, I used to choose a certain type of man. And all of these relationships were extremely toxic. They were extremely toxic. That being said, I got into my mid 30s and I was like, man, I'm tired. Like, I just really need to do something different. I'm dating the same kind of person. I'm getting the same results, right? So I in my meditation, just asked God, why do I choose that kind of man? And sometimes you have to really get still and be quiet and allow God to answer the questions that you answer the questions that you're asking him. And so in that, what he revealed to me, hello, Mama Diane, what God revealed to me in that moment is that I was choosing those men based on a false sense of protection, because when I was growing up, my mother was the dominant in the house. She was the disciplinarian. And thank you, Sharif. Anyway, she was the dominant, she was the disciplinarian, and there were certainly times where the discipline was excessive. And her husband, he never, my great uncle, he never intervened. Even when he knew that she was wrong, he would just kind of let her drop the hammer, and then he would be there to be of consolation after the fact. And so I started to, so as God was revealing those things to me, he showed me that I was choosing those men based on a false sense of protection. They seemed like the kind of people who wouldn't allow me to be hurt by somebody. So in that moment, that was me identifying my trauma, which was directly correlated to the type of person that I chose to be in a relationship with, which also made me understand that those relationships were toxic. One of the things that I think it's really important for you to remember as you're identifying your trauma is don't modify your truth to make somebody who contributed to your trauma feel better. Okay, your truth is your truth. And I want to say to most of the people who will watch this, if you have experienced, a lot of us got whippings as a child, right? There's discipline and there's abuse. Listen, y'all, it was abusive and it was traumatic to hit a child with things like extension cords, tree branches, okay? Because I wasn't getting hit with switches. I was getting hit with tree branches. It was traumatic to get slapped or punched or kicked. Those things cause trauma. And we need to stop referring to those things as discipline, because it wasn't discipline. I think the intent may have been discipline, but in actuality, it was abuse. It does cause trauma. There are grown people that walk around and flinch when somebody gets too close because they suffer from that trauma. So as you're identifying your trauma, you are not responsible to minimize it or to mask it. and to act as if it wasn't as traumatic as it was to protect someone else. Because in actuality, those things were traumatic. So that's where you have to start. I kind of had some other points that I wanted to make. And one of those things is that as you begin to explore and evaluate yourself so that you can heal from the traumas that you've had, one question will take you to another question, and those questions will take you down several rabbit holes. Have patience, have endurance, and be willing to go down that rabbit hole. Be willing to explore the next thing. Don't be afraid, because sometimes healing, it has to hurt first, right? I heard that a long time ago from a lady that I used to counsel. She used to counsel me, actually. And she said, you have to hurt to heal. Some of the things from which you have to heal from, they are going to hurt. They are going to be uncomfortable. They are going to make you cry. There are going to be conversations that you might have to have with people who had a part in your trauma that might be very painful. And if they're unwilling to have those conversations, that's okay. At the end of the day, you don't actually need that, because you can offer forgiveness without a person actually receiving it. You don't need them to receive it in order for you to give it. But I want you to be very honest with yourself. It's a good idea to have a journal or something like that nearby so that you can write down your thoughts as you're going through that process. And you'll find that there are actually things that have, that there are triggers for you, and you don't quite understand why. But, pay attention to the way that you respond to situations when the response is negative, or when there's anxiety after the situation. Like, have you ever left a conversation with somebody and you were extremely anxious after that conversation, or you had extreme negative energy that you just, couldn't come off of immediately after that conversation, things like that. So, pay attention to the way that you respond in those situations. Pay attention to the different emotions that you have that are associated with the situation as it's happening. Write those things down. Why do I get frustrated when so-and-so says that thing? Or why do I get frustrated as soon as I'm in this person's presence, right? And see if there's something, a lot of times there are triggers. And I think it's really important as we begin to relate to other people, and we're trying to explore any sort of relationship, that we have to be aware that a lot of people have experienced trauma, and sometimes we don't explore that with one another all the time, but sometimes there's a reason that people act the way that they act, and it's and they react poorly. And so sometimes you have to ask a person, what trauma have you had in your life? And it's okay, guys, that almost all of us have some sort of trauma. And I think it's important to be aware that no one trauma is more important than another. In other words, you may have not experienced something, my mother was murdered, right? You may not have experienced that, but you may have had something in your past, that it affects you in the same way, because that's the only trauma that you know. That being said, the next question is, how have people dealt with their trauma, right? Because if you haven't dealt with your trauma, that means that you are in a place where you can inadvertently hurt a person when you don't mean to. For example, a lot of men, a lot of women, they want to have a good man. They want to have a good woman. They want to be in very healthy relationships. But if you've been through certain things in your life and you haven't processed or healed from your trauma, you can be used to a certain level of toxic that you crave. And subconsciously, you do things to feed that need. And I'm sorry guys, like I'm a little bit distracted. Like I found out that someone that I loved and had a lot of admiration for, my kid's great grandfather, passed away. um I heard yesterday that a couple of people, again, that are related to people very close to me, they're very ill and passing away, and it's just a little bit of a distraction. But um, we won't let that stop us, because we just talking. We just here to talk. Um, but some of the other things that you have to look at um, when you're trying to identify your trauma is speaking your truth. Don't be anxious about the things that you need to say. And it's okay, I think, to at least try to approach a conversation with our loved ones if we feel like they had something to do with our trauma and we still interact with that person. And if they're not responsive to the conversation, you just continue to pray on it. You continue to meditate on the situation, and God, he'll give it to you exactly what it is that you need to do. I'm trying to check notes here. When you're misbehaving, you need to ask yourself why. A lot of this is going to be self-evaluation, and I'm sorry. I think that when I come on next week, that we'll talk about things more in depth. And I actually had a whole bunch of notes and everything, and some good things that I was going to share with you guys. But one of my watchers said, stay focused. It is really hard to do in this moment. Because I have so many feelings for the people that are experiencing hearing that their loved ones passed away today. It's heavy on my heart. And I do have some resources that right before I get off here, I'm going to provide, because Minister Diane Harrell, you can visit her page, and she does have a support group for those who are grieving over loved ones. She is an amazing support just in reference to dealing with that. There is no way in particular in which you have to deal with that. It doesn't look the same for any two people. But she can definitely walk you through that. And there's so many people that she has in the group from all over the world that support one another. So I encourage you to reach out. And if not even Minister Diane Harrell, just Google, grief groups. Get into a circle of people that you can share with. Get into a circle of people that, sometimes your family, they may not be the best support, but get into a circle of people where you can vent how you feel, where you can get it out, and you don't have to walk around with that grief on the inside of you. I'm also at the end of this going to provide the phone number for the National Suicide Prevention Line. And I want to say to anybody out there that if, I'm not going to say life is not that bad, right? Because that's what a lot of times people will say when you are, or when someone has expressed to them that they want to hurt themselves. People will say, life is not that bad. If that's where your mind is in the moment that you are whatever it is that you're dealing with, you want to hurt yourself in that moment, and for you, it may be that bad. That may be real to you in that moment. And we don't want to minimize that, but I am asking that you would at least consider reaching out to somebody that you feel safe to talk to. Reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. There really are people that have been vetted to be there, and talk to you and talk you through that. They do have chat available if you're not comfortable actually having to talk to someone in person. They do have chat available. But reach out to somebody. Let somebody know that you are struggling, that you are considering hurting yourselves. If you need to, ask them to stay with you. Again, I am available. I will do the best I can to ensure that I respond to messages in my inbox immediately if I have the ability. And while I'm saying that, let me say this. I put my information, I make my information available publicly so that people can reach out to me. And I am willing and absolutely able to talk to anyone who is struggling or hurting. But for my new friends who are in my inbox with messages outside of that, I'm probably not going to respond. I am not interested. I'm not looking for love. I am not looking to have my tarot read. Uh, I don't need any spiritual readings. So those are just a couple of public service announcements that if you are truly in my inbox and because you are needing help or you are needing somebody that you reach out to, I'm here for you in that regard. But anything beyond that, I will not respond. So I don't want to keep you guys here long because I feel like we literally just talking today, y'all. But again, there were just some tragic things that I heard, and I just want to make sure that we just love on the people that we have for the time that we're here, and make sure that as you're interacting with people, use those relationships to ensure that you have made an impression on someone that leaves them feeling loved. Love is free. It's one of the easiest things that we have to give away, yet it is the most difficult. I'm not sure why. I'm going to explore that in one of our later broadcasts. But anyway, y'all, even as you're relating to people, do understand that everyone has had some sort of trauma in their life. And if a person is behaving poorly, before you just dismiss them, before you just say you don't want to be bothered, explore that trauma. Because a lot of times people are going through something that makes them act a certain way, and it may be their way of crying out for help, so explore that trauma. But before I go, I did promise that I'm gonna say the number, but I'm also going to type it in the comments. I didn't see tonight that anybody wanted to join me, so I'm gonna give you guys all of this information. And so the suicide prevention, and this is the national number, and again, I will post it in the comments. It's 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. You can remain anonymous if you choose to. They do have chat options available if you're uncomfortable to speak to somebody. I'm also going to give you a local phone number for those of you who are in Denver, Colorado, because that's where I live. 844-493-8255. 844-493-8255. And that is a local number for Denver. And the last phone number that I'm going to give you guys, there is a young lady. Her name is Cherie Talbot, and she has permitted me to say her phone number online, and I want you guys to feel free to reach out to her. But I purchased life insurance from her, okay? And the reality is, you guys, that, just like we're all here, we are all guaranteed at some time to leave this place. If you have children, especially, it is very important that you put them in a position to take care of your burial needs. It is very important to me as a mother. I can't speak for anyone else, but as a mother, it's very important to me to ensure that my children are financially okay if anything happens to me. And mind you, my children are grown and very responsible, all taking care of their own business, but mommy's still going to leave something to ensure that even if they put it away from my grandchildren, it's there. So she does do a plethora of things. I like to focus on the fact that she sells life insurance that, listen, y'all, it is very, very reasonably priced. I promise you, you can afford it. It's probably less than a cup of Starbucks for some of you, depending on how many children you have. I don't believe that they have any pre-existing condition stipulations right now. So anyway, her name is Sharee, Sharee Talbot is her last name, Talbot. Her phone number is 720-648-3650. 720-648-3650. You can tell her that Michelle Love sent you. And again, she does financial advising. She can talk to you about saving for your retirement. She can talk to you about rolling over any existing 401ks that you have. And again, my favorite thing to focus on is definitely the life insurance. I think that there are way too many of us that have GoFundMe's going up when our loved ones die. You guys saw recently the comedian AJ Johnson, I believe is his name, passed away, and he didn't have his family didn't have a way to bury him. They had to rely on donations from other people, and I think that if we're out here, we're drinking Starbucks or eating fast food or going to the club or buying alcohol or any of those things, then we certainly have a couple dollars that we can dedicate to making sure that those we're leaving behind might be comfortable, especially if we have children. So I want you guys to give her a call, tell her I sent you. And I'm going to go ahead and get off of here because it doesn't look like, unless there's, any other questions that you guys have or someone wants to join me, I'm going to go because I didn't really come before you with all of the things that I had planned in reference to us talking about identifying our trauma. But I love y'all. I mean, I absolutely love every one of you, whether I have met you or I have not. I don't want anybody to be out there thinking that nobody loves you. I do. You are welcome to reach out to me, and we can talk if you need to. So with that being said, you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday. Give honor to God because He is absolutely the reason why we are here, and He is going to be the center of your healing. Without Him, you won't achieve anything. There's no therapy in the world. There's no cure but God. And some people may beg to differ with me on that, and that's okay. But in my life, there's no cure but God. And if you were trying to do it any other way, or you were trying to achieve anything without Him, it will most definitely be unsuccessful. I love you too, Mama Diane. So you guys, especially those of you that had loved ones that passed away this week, and I've talked to a couple of you, and those of you whose loved ones are in the process of passing away, and you were having to provide that support. She can really walk you through that, because it's hard. It's hard to watch when your loved ones are passing away. It's hard to watch the ones that get left behind. But she can walk you through that. There are a lot of other people in that group as well. They're from all over the world, and any one of them might reach out and support you. Love you too, Auntie Helene. So you guys just make sure that you go over and visit that group. Again, I'm going to go post all of the phone numbers that I gave you today in the comments. And one thing I want to say, guys, do not waste people's resources. Okay. So I'm not talking about the National Suicide Hotline or anything like that, but if I refer you to someone and I say that you can use my name, please conduct yourself and do business accordingly. But anyway, with integrity. I love you guys. Have a beautiful Friday. I will see you next Friday. Listen, whatever happens, whether I'm prepared or not, I know that if I'm still here to come before you, that I'm walking in my purpose, and I'm just going to do what it is that God says to do, and I'm going to be grateful for being here, whether or not it gets done in perfection, okay? I love y'all.